What issues are you aware of new migrants in Scotland facing?
I think there's a lot of issues that new migrants face. Housing issues, employment issues, access to education, some community related issues sometimes, and hopefully this is not a regular occurrence, but perhaps finding some hostility in certain communities. So there's a whole range of issues, and I think it's important that we provide as much support as possible to people who are coming to this country to help them get settled here and make a positive contribution.
What challenge with money are you aware of new migrants facing?
What? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
What challenge with money are you aware of new migrants facing?
With money? I mean, again, some of it will be very similar to what I said in response to the first question. Clearly there are issues in terms of access to benefits, accessing employment. I think some of it depends on the status that people have here. There's obviously a difference between people who are here as asylum seekers versus people who have established right to stay here. But the challenges are and can be significant, and I get a lot of them here in my constituency office, and I try to help as much as I can to resolve some of these things. On the flip side of that, many migrants to Scotland, new and more established migrants to Scotland, make a massive contribution to our country, and we're very lucky to have them here.
How do you support new migrants in your roles as First Minister and the MSP for Glasgow South Side?
I'll take those in reverse order. In my role as MSP, I try to give as much practical assistance as possible. So if a new migrant comes to see me, then often what I in my office will do will be to put them in touch with the right services and agencies, whether that's housing or employment services or the Department of Work and Pensions if it's benefit issues. So we try to give very hands-on practical support. In my role as First Minister, the Scottish Government has limited powers over some of the issues that new migrants face, whether that's the immigration laws or the rules around access to benefits. These are things that are still determined at the Parliament in London, so we have not got complete freedom and responsibility to set these rules in the way we want. We have responsibility over things like housing and some employability services. We control the education system, and what we try to do with all of these services is to make them as open and inclusive as possible, and that's the principal role of the Scottish Government side of it.
Okay. I do have one question. What do you think is the most important for integration? Coming from other countries to mix up is people of Glasgow and to have a job?
I think the most important things, you asked me for one thing, a couple of things, is mutual understanding is always important, and I think it's really important, and this is where people like me have a role to play, is to lead by example and challenge myths and attitudes that are wrong in terms of the contribution migrants make. So developing and promoting as much community understanding, mutual understanding, is very important. And then secondly, having good support mechanisms in place. And I know from my experience here that there's a lot of good work that is done, but there's also a lot of gaps in those services where things are not quite as we would want them to be. Without trying to diminish the challenges that exist, because those challenges can be very significant, I also think we should celebrate in a very positive way the diversity of the country, and Glasgow in particular. Where we have, in this part of Glasgow, we've got many different cultures and faiths and backgrounds represented here, and by and large living together very peacefully and happily, and we hopefully enrich each other's lives. And so I think we should be positive about that as well.
I have one question also. What do you think we need more support within Glasgow?
I think in a very practical sense, I think it is around housing and support for employment would be the things, and making sure that support is available when needed. Now, there are housing challenges for people in Glasgow, not just for people who have recently come to Scotland. They're, and again, it's something else the Scottish Government has responsibility for, to try and make sure we're funding a good supply of housing so that we can meet that need. But, often, whether you're a new migrant or somebody who's been here for ever, a good house somewhere to call home is the foundation of everything else you can do in life. So I think housing is really fundamentally important.
How can people get support from you?
Well, if people live in my constituency, they can come and get support from me very directly. So they can come in here, and if I'm not here, speak to my staff, and we will support in any given time. We'll have probably hundreds, if not thousands, of cases where we're trying to give people practical help. The way the rules of the Scottish Parliament operate are that you can only get direct help from me as an MSP if you live in the area that I cover. But if you do, then I help in every way I can.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I always remember one of my colleagues who's sadly passed away now, who came to Glasgow from Pakistan in the 1960s. He told this wonderful story. He arrived at the airport, he had no money. He was due to be at an address in Pollokshields. Somebody was giving him somewhere to stay, and he had no idea how to get there. So he got on a bus, and the bus driver kind of took pity on him and came off of his route to take him to the exact address he was going to. And he said in that moment he totally fell in love with Scotland because he thought we were obviously nice people. But that doesn't happen to everybody. So, these kind of basic things are really important.